Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the Fireside Chat put on by the GSS. Tonight, we will be looking at interviewing for success. We have two great speakers or panelists lined up for you, so it's going to be a very informative and interactive discussion. Don't forget that the GSS has a lot of opportunities in the ITO, information technology outsourcing segment or sector. We also have knowledge process outsourcing. We have the general BPO process outsourcing that we're all familiar with. Career opportunities in IT, in audit, in HR, in proposal writing, in customer service, in sales. So if you're looking to start your career, the GSS, or BPO, KPO, ITO, these are great opportunities, are great starting points rather. So we're here to discuss how you can land an opportunity in these areas by really acing your interviews. And tonight I have two great panelists with me. I'll take the first introduction, or introduce the first speaker that our paths have crossed before. I have great pleasure in introducing Yolande Hilton. She is the managing director of Hilton Insights, which is an HR consultancy firm based in Kingston, Jamaica, with a mandate to transform HR, bringing the world of theory and practice together, to bolster, I think, and couple it with data-driven insights that will provide more sustained and impactful solutions to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of individuals and companies. Welcome, Yolande Hilton.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Good night. Welcome to the discussion, and we're so happy to have you tonight. And I'm hoping that the viewers will be able to learn a thing or two or three from you tonight. I also have Danielle Stewart. She is an employee relations and conflict management specialist. She honed her skills in human resources over the last 17 years while driving individual and organizational focused industrial relations, interpersonal dynamics, and career development. Danielle is a certified relationship and job coach who uses her background in law and sociology to work through the rights, ethics, and obligations and interests that often underpin employee relations. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Danielle to the program. Hi, Danielle.
Hi, Andrew. Hi, Yolande. Good night. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here for the chat tonight.
Good, good, good. Ladies, welcome to the fireside chat. So happy to have you. And both of you, you're in HR. You've been interviewing candidates for quite some time, so we know that the interviewing process is important, and there's a reason why we interview candidates. I'll throw this open to Yolande first. You're at the top, right? And then I come to you, Daniel. Talk to us and tell us why, first of all, what is the reason behind interviews? Because I've heard a lot of people say, or candidates say, do I really have to do an interview? So let us talk about when an employer decides to put an interview together, what is the real reason behind it? And then we delve a little bit deeper into, types of interviews, how people can be successful, etc. But let's just start with that. Then I go to Daniel.
All right. So great question. Of course, one interview is an opportunity to get to know you. At this point, just submitting your resume, it gives a little taste. It gives an idea of what you're about, but really it is in having that conversation that makes a difference. I like to liken it to going shopping. When you pass a store, you see the beautiful items in that window pane, and that is what tells you, come into this store and you walk around and you make a decision if the item is really what you want in terms of touching and feeling and looking at the prices, because just seeing it is one thing, but engaging is a whole nother ball game. And so I'd liken interviews to that. Your resume is like the item in that window, and coming into the store now is your opportunity to really sell yourself and explain, because the resume really has points. It gives you a taste, but it doesn't give you a true opportunity to express and share. And an interview is not only for the employer, but it's also for the interviewee as a participant in the process to see if this is where you want to be. So it's a two-way relationship.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Daniel, so we know talk about, why we need to do an interview. When a candidate presents herself or himself, to the interviewer or the recruiter, what is, what should be in the candidate's mind? And how should and how should they put themselves forward? I wanted to take back that question, but I'm going to leave it there. How do you think they should be projecting themselves in front of that interviewer or recruiter?
Well, back in the day when we were coming up, when you are going on an interview, you're told to make sure that you're presenting your most professional self, right? You're expected to wear your suit, and you're expected to turn up at least half an hour early to the interview, walk with your resume, that sort of thing. And I think that over the years, the interviewing process has changed a lot. People don't necessarily have to walk with their resume anymore, dependent on the organization that they're going into. But we still require a certain level of professionalism, regardless of what job opportunity you're going into. I think that candidates tend to think sometimes that because I'm going for a little security work or a little assistant work, it means they don't necessarily have to dress all the way up. And the truth is, a friend of mine always tells me, you never know who you're auditioning for. When you step into an interview, you may not get that opportunity, but you don't know where just turning up for that opportunity is going to lead you. You don't know who may be on the panel, if it's a panel interview, who's going to lead you into the next leg of your journey. And so I think that it's really important to present your best professional self in your language, in your mannerisms, in your dress, right? And also present as much as you can your authentic self, because the interview is also an opportunity for the interviewers and the interviewees to determine whether or not this is a fit. Your resume kind of tells us, yeah, this person can do the job. But what about the interpersonal? Is this a fit? Is this a good person for this team? Is this a good manager-managee relationship? And so I think that in addition to presenting as professionally as you possibly can, with as much knowledge as you can on the role, on the organization, on the sector you're going into, it's also best for you to present yourself authentically and as truthfully as you can.
Awesome. Thank you so much. One of the things that I feel that a lot of job seekers tend to not focus on, and I always look out for this, is, have you researched the challenge, the company? Sometimes they do the research about the company, the culture, and everything of that sort. But have you really researched the challenge that the company is facing, why they're hiring for this particular role? And many times, regardless of how entry level the position is, there is a reason why the role is open. And so as a job seeker, you have to uncover, why is the employer searching for this particular employee skill set? So I want you to touch on that for me, Yolanda, and then I come to you. I want to hear your perspective as well, Daniel, in terms of preparation. When we're talking about getting a candidate prepared, we know, yes, they need to have the resume and all the document, but what other tools they need to be looking at, going into that interview separate and apart. I want us to list all the documents and everything that they need to do, but what else can make them stand out from everybody else?
All right. Well, the first thing you would do is, from preparing for your resume, is looking at that job ad, that job description, and reading it in details, because that is what really provides you with insight as to what is expected in this role. So you want to look on the job description, think about your experiences with the different items and how it is you can demonstrate you delivered this in the past and what you will bring to this organization in the future. There are You have Google. Google is your friend, right? So you want to also research the company. And researching the company doesn't only necessarily mean going on their website, but a lot of persons are using social media. If you were to type in their name into social media, what comes up? What are customers saying? If, for example, I want to work in the bank and I type in the name of the bank, I can see what the customer feedback is, and it can give me some insights as to what problems they potentially have and what is going well. So I can start to think about the value I would be able to add once I join that institution. When you are going on the website, we have what is called the strategic intent of the business. What is its mission? What is the vision? What is the core values? And sometimes we roll our eyes and think it's not that important, but it really is. Because again, Daniel mentioned relationship. And especially as you move in your career, that aspect of values and ensuring that you are aligned becomes so important. So, what are their values, and is it in alignment with yours? Some organizations show you their org chart. Look on their organizational structure. So the organizational structure really tells you who reports to who, how many persons would you be responsible for. If it is, it gives you an idea about communication. Is it top down? Is it horizontal? So even before stepping foot into that organization, you have an idea of how it is they operate. So it is being present to what is in front of you in the newspapers, having conversations, reading that job description, that now allows you to put yourself in the frame of mind that I am going to work here. You spend a lot of hours at work, right? So you want to ensure that you never ever do anything out of desperation, so that this is what I really want. I will be happy here. I will be able to contribute here, because you spend a lot of time and you wouldn't also want to make a wrong decision. So it's a two-way street.
Awesome, awesome. Daniel, I want to hear your thoughts on that as well. But in addition, what about the candidates say, listen, we don't have no time for that. We just want to work. We get a lot of that, right?
I've had quite a few. I've had quite a few of those. When you say to them, "Why have you applied for the job?" and say, "Miss, I want to work," right?
Yes, yes, yes.
But to be honest, Yolande took most. If I could have hugged her up a while ago when she started talking about the alignment of the values, I would have hugged her up, because I find, especially through our platform here on the GSS, that I've encountered a number of people who are going through the transition from their infantile stages of employment, and now they're mature and they're trying to figure out, where do I go, what do I want for myself, um, what am I trying to attract in an organization. And so I do think that it's beneficial for us to talk to the younger generation of workers about alignment of values. Also those who are going through the transition. However, I think what I would probably add is, last time we spoke, I would have talked a little bit about your transferable skills and what you can add to the organization. I find that a lot of the times when I'm coming across candidates on this platform, I'm asking them about those transferable skills, because while you're coming in and saying you want to work, you coming in and you say you want to work, and say you come to a call center is where they naturally want to come to, because they want to work and they think it's easy.
Yes,
But
yes.
what else of value can you add to the organization, and what else of value can the organization add to you? So many times when I'm talking to people, I'm talking about those transferable skills, in that maybe you can't find a job in your field. I've come across people who are studying or have studied engineering. They can't get a job in engineering. So now they want to go into the contact center. And I'm saying to them, don't think about it with a ceiling. Go in there, find the facilities manager, get a project from that facilities manager, a passion project, so that you are engaging your engineering portion of your brain. Go and look at the chairs that are around, the ergonomics and so on, and engage those other aspects of your brain. Perhaps when an opening comes up in facilities now, that presents an opportunity for you to shine. So I think that many times as candidates, we go in and we're thinking about just the job that we're going to do. We are not thinking about the challenges that the organization is having that we can address. We also don't think about those challenges in any entrepreneurial aspects at all. So we think about ourselves only going in there to be the worker. But there likely are challenges in those organizations that you can solve by being an entrepreneur who can provide the resolution on another level. So I just think that candidates need to occupy a broader space in terms of their transferable skills and what they can add to the organization, and what value the organization can return onto them outside of what they're doing just 9 to 5.
Awesome. Good, good. Thank you so much. On the issue of tell me about yourself, a lot of candidates, they fumble over that question. They're not sure, should I tell them about the 5 cats that I have and trips to Hawaii or whatever the case may be. What is that question really? So when you ask that question, Yolande, what are you trying to get to? Or can we deconstruct it, for those who are listening, watching?
Well, I am going to be very honest with the audience. You would think really it is the easiest question, but sometimes it feels like the hardest questions and
Yeah.
the question. And a part of that is it calls for us to be reflective, to think about what it is that we can contribute and think about self. And sometimes it is difficult to really speak about yourself. What do I really say? You think it would be the easiest thing. But my little trick in terms of getting or providing a response to that question is to once again go back to the job description. Context is important. It is a job interview. So yes, having the 5 cats and dogs and loving to go to the beach is important because that is a part of you. But what the question is really asking you to do is to present what are your skill sets. So if it is that I am interested in managerial type of role and the job says to me I need to be able to communicate well, I should be someone who is able to manage a team. When I'm also discussing myself and who it is I am as a person when that question is asked, those are some of the things that you should be bringing to light. So I'm Yolanda, I like to learn, and it's evident that I like to learn because I've probably been just doing too much things in as it relates to school. But training and development is something that excites me, and also being able to help other people. Right then and there, I've told you about myself, but no, I like to learn. I'm interested in training and I want to help other people. So it's thinking about how to communicate that message, and you can practice. Not too much practice though, so that it come across fake. No chat GPT too much, right? But it can also give you an idea because practice is important. I don't know why you're laughing about the chat GPT. I hope I never touched that button there, right? But yes.
Oh boy. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that that response. Daniel, and there's so many questions that I need to ask tonight. How does an interviewer recover, from a question they thought that they never answered properly, or they just stumble over it, or they just can't really answer? Because to be quite frank, sometimes the interview it's going very good, and the interviewer poses a question, and then the confidence level just goes through the door, right? And all of a sudden it just goes downhill. But it's not all over for a question that you have not answered correctly or in your own estimation and mind. What would you say to that person? How you recover from a question that you thought you didn't answer correctly or hadn't answered at all?
If I were to be completely honest, I think that there are a number of times that's happened to me. Where in the beginning of an interview, I mean, you can be so nervous, and then also sometimes you're not even nervous. Sometimes you're just confident and there's so much information that you want to present, and you realize that you've presented a part of the information, but you never necessarily answer the question though. You know what I mean? Because you got carried away, and especially when you're passionate about the thing that you're interviewing on. But what I tend to do as a personal trick is, if I feel like there's something I haven't addressed, I tend to either one, I wait until the opportunity to ask questions, right? So I turn what I've left off into a question. I frame it into a question so that you can see that I've thought about it. I put some thought into it. And now when I ask you the question and you provide me the response, I can engage you. So I bring you back into conversation with me about the thing you asked me about. Right? And two, I also try to take, reflective pauses. Right? So I try to engage my interview in a way that allows me to pause and think a little bit, because sometimes the question is a layered question, trying to see where my mind will go with it, especially if it's a question asking you to provide a solution on something. Yeah. Those questions tend to be layers. They tend to want to know where your mind goes, how creatively you will approach this situation, that sort of thing. So in responding to those types of questions, I try to take pauses. Not the pauses with the and the conversation fillers and all of that, but to ask more probing questions so that I can get more information that will help me to frame my response, and also buy me some time. Because sometimes, again, especially when you're passionate about it, your brain just gallop and you want to give this these endless responses, but it doesn't necessarily come back to the core of the question that you're responding to. So I say, take the pauses that you need to think about your response. There's nothing wrong with taking pauses to respond to your interviewer. An interviewer is not going to frown on you taking 30 seconds to digest it. And it's better for me as an interviewer when I see that you have digested it and you're putting some thought in it, than for you to reel off something now that is just something I know that you practiced.
Yes. Absolutely. But do you think that a candidate should take 30 seconds for every question?
No, well, some of the questions you should be able to reel off the answer, right? So even though the question about tell me about yourself for some people is a difficult question, I do think that if you are faltering in response to that question, the interviewer, I'm raising some questions in my mind about why you don't want to tell me about yourself, what it may be that you are hiding, that sort of thing. So I do think that there are a number of questions, especially in the beginning of the interview, when I'm priming you for the deeper questions, that you should be able to respond to. Tell me about your career. Tell me why you have applied for the job. What do you know about the organization? I do think that those are things that you should have come prepared for. The thought-provoking ones now, yes. I think it's okay for you to take a beat. And when I say to you, if this presented itself to you as a situation, how would you handle it? I think it's sufficient for you to take 30 seconds and, work your mind around it, digest it a little bit before you provide a response.
Good. Yes, I can appreciate that. And I always say to interviewers, it's okay to ask for clarity. And when you have answered, I don't know where I got this from or where I get this from, but ask, did that make sense? Did it answer your question? Sometimes, the interviewer may not want you to read them. So they'll just put up a bland face and just say, well, yes, when it's not really okay. but also listen for cues and watch for cues throughout the interview as well. And if your gut is telling you that I didn't answer this question correctly, you can go back later on throughout the as you've suggested throughout the question and answer segment, and address it if you feel that it has not been addressed properly, so to speak. Thank you. So on the issue now of, so when we're talking about the interview, usually I break down my interviews in probably the three segments. I'm looking at the technical skills, I'm looking at the soft skills, and then probably, how does this person fit into the organization? For you, when you're looking for personality, what are some types of questions that you throw to the candidate? And maybe one or two, and possibly the type of answers you're looking for those who are listening or watching.
My interview techniques are very unconventional. I tend to ask things that I think it's gonna catch in left field. Yes, so I'll ask you things like, what you watched on TV last night? What are your 5 favorite series? Right? Because that is telling me a number of things about you that you would not have prepared for in that setting. So I tend to ask candidates, what's the thing you hated the most about your last job? What's the thing you loved the most? Something that I think is going to make them have to go, wait, I never practiced for that question, because that gives me now, the interviewer in me, that gives me a good opportunity to read the body language, right? I'm looking for whether or not you're making this up. Are you telling me a lie here? Are you going back into your recall? So that story was far away in your mind. And then if I think that you're going back into recall, I can say to you, how long ago did that happen? And if you told me just the other day, then I know you're lying to me. So it gives me these random questions, gives me an opportunity to kind of really sit with your body language, where your eyes are darting to, how you turn your face, if you're twiddling with your thumbs. It gives me an opportunity to read and determine the authenticity of your responses and the level of integrity. I also ask things about, like, who's been your favorite boss? Tell me about that person. What was your worst boss like? And I come in very disarming in the interviews, and sometimes I come in and I talk to me, drop 2 line of pattern, I make them feel comfortable. So they come now and they tell me, oh, my worst boss. But when they're telling me about that, they're telling me about a situation that I'm potentially dealing with inside this organization. So I know that you are not the candidate for it, for you cannot manage this problem.
Yes,
Understand?
Yes. Very good. Thank you so much. We're going to talk about showing up in the interview. Welcome back, Yolanda. We're going to talk about showing up with your authentic self. And I want to tie that into, this probably job hopping. If you get that question a lot, in the interview, how do you address that? And I remembered I had a interview coaching client, pretty devastated because she has applied to probably 5 or 10 companies, got called for all of them. She was an accountant, got called for all of them, and she failed them miserably. And when we started doing our session, she says, this is the question. She just thought that, I just need to give them some fake answers and then that will do the job. And the last interview she went to, the interviewer said to her, well, I just don't believe you. I just think that this is, you're just giving me some fake answers. What really happened? And she just never shared the truth. And when she came to me, I said to her, listen, you have to be authentic. You have to share the real reason why you're leaving and how you have learned from that situation and how it now how has that made you a better person, even as you approach your work. And she went on, she got 3 interviews, and guess what? 3 offers. Just that one question. Just that one question. It did affect her, and I know there was some level of probably confidence issues as well. But you have to show up authentic. So Yolande, when we address the issue of job hopping, or even just trying to put on a front in the interview, what would you say to those job seekers?
I would say the same thing you told your client in that example about the importance of being authentic. One, it's easier to be your real self than to pretend to be something that you are not. Pretending to be something that you are not can possibly get you. It might get you the job, but will it keep you there? You can only pretend for so long and no more. So it's better to present who you are. What I would suggest though is being mindful about how you communicate. It's not necessarily what you say, it is how you say it. So, for example, the individual who was job hopping, you're job hopping for a reason. So, what is that reason? What have you learned from it? How will you be using that knowledge going forward becomes very important. Being authentic also gives the person an idea that maybe you are someone who is trustworthy. There are little things that we do that we think we're hiding, but really, after you have done quite a few interviews, we know. So it is very important to present your real self. You might be a little nervous at first. The interviewers understand that you are human. The interviewer is also a human. We make mistakes, things happen. A while ago, I just fell off the call. Like, these things seriously happen, and I have to come back on and put on the face and get back into it. So it also demonstrates that you're a human, and what do you do when things happen.
Yes. Thank you so much. What are some traits a recruiter is looking for, generally speaking now? A candidate comes in front of you, what are some things they're looking for what we would say now for the GSS Fireside Chat community? Go ahead, Daniel.
I think that there are some that are the regular run of the mill. We're all looking for honesty. We're all looking for some amount of integrity. We're looking for the capacity, like mentally, what are you capable of bringing to the table? Um, but then I think outside of those things, we're looking for dedication, those little things. But outside of those things, I think that sometimes we're also just looking for things that are specific to the job and specific to the team that you're going on. So we're looking on fit. Are you fit for this job? Is your personality going to mesh? Are you able to endure the rigors of the environment that you might be going into? Because the rigors of the job is one thing, The environment that you're going into now is a whole other ballgame. So, for example, that same question that you just asked, I've actually employed someone for her. She was dry with her response to me when I asked her if I could call her previous employer, and she said no. And I said, why? She said, well, I just took them to the IDT. As I perk up in my chair now, because that's my field. So now I perk up in my chair. What do you mean you take them to the IDT? I said, who represented you? She said, I represented myself. Now I'm really interested. I'm in because you didn't get a lawyer or an IR person to carry it to IDT. You carried them yourself. What was the result? She said, I won. So I sat down and I let her tell me the story. But while she's telling me the story, I know that it's what prevented her from being employable to other people, because employers don't want to hear that
Yes,
somebody
yes.
to the IDT. But guess what? This environment that I'm looking for somebody to go into is a industrial relations volatile disaster. So I need somebody with the grit, who understands how the tribunal works, who understands the IR process, who, if I'm not around, can manage that process for me tooth and nail. I'm looking for somebody with that kind of grit, and I'm looking for somebody with that kind of backbone to say, this is wrong and this is not what we are doing. So while I am certain it failed her in other circumstances, it worked for her in this circumstance. And what I think that our community should know is that sometimes when an attribute fails you in an interview, it is just quite likely that that was not the place for you.
Yes.
Sometimes that is okay, because the door that opens for you will be the right place for you. Present yourself as authentically as possible. It will work in your favor in the place that you are supposed to go.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love that so much, so much. On the issue of questioning technique or questioning the interviewer, Yolande, we know that sometimes asking questions can just get you, out of the runnings. I mean, you've been doing well all along, and you ask one question, and a big, it's just red flag, because how can you ask this question if you really understood the job description, right? So, what advice would you give to somebody who who needs to ask a few questions? Maybe two to three questions, tops, 5 tops. I guess she's back. She's gone. All right. So Daniel, I'll have you answer this question until Yolande comes back.
Okay, so you're going to backtrack on me. 5 questions for what?
No, I just use it as an example. So really, what is your advice to candidates? What type of questions they should be asking? How many questions they should be asking, etc.
It's so funny. Once I went on an interview, and the person in the position I was applying for was interviewing me. And it was when we were done with the interview and I got the job that she said, Daniel, you asked me so many wonderful questions. You never asked me why I didn't want the work. So I think it is important for you to ask questions in context. Not necessarily just about what is on the job description, because what is on the job description tells you what you're going to be required to do. But if you've done your research and you find that there is something in the job description that's particularly nuanced, or something about the environment that you don't understand, I do think it is important for you to raise it, because it is important in the interview process to get a critical understanding of what it is that you are getting yourself into. And when you are engaging me like that, I can also see levels of interest in the position. I can see that you have done some research. So for example, when I said to you, I've worked in a place where it is an industrial relations disaster, it was important in that interview for me to go in saying, I understand the legal battles, the challenges that are going on now. Now, where are those challenges in the HR space? What level have they reached? What do you require of this person who is coming in to take up this position right now? Do they have to hit the ground running with these cases? Are the cases disposed of and we're just creating a brand new environment and we're cleansing the space? So I think that it's important when you are asking the interviewer questions, to ask with context, ask around the environment, ask around the job description if there's anything you're unclear of, but stay away from the run-of-the-mill questions like, what is the salary for the position? Ask me something that makes me think that you're thinking about it, you're invested in it, and you are actually showing some kind of interest. If all you want to know is what is the benefits and what is the salary and all of that, blah, 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 then you haven't lost me, but you also haven't engaged me.
Yeah. Okay. Absolutely. Thank you so much. So it's important that we pay the candidate pay attention throughout the interview. I also like the interview to flow as though it is a mutual conversation. So it's not about me asking your question and you answering, and then you wait for me to ask you another one and then you answer. If it's a conversation, you should be listening intently to me and pick up on some things and say, you raised the point. For me particularly, I love when candidates do that. You raise the point and I just want to address it. I may be biased, but it shows me again that you're listening, that you're fully interested in the conversation that I'm having. Yolande, can you talk to us about mannerisms throughout the interview? and I wanted to touch on individual interviewer, but I also wanted to touch on panel interviews because I feel like there's a way in which you need to carry yourself for panel interviews versus individual.
Right. Well, I think in terms of mannerisms, it is we all are taught very early about basic manners, right? Having a smile, saying good morning, please, and thank you. A very easy tip is learning the names of persons, right? Because sometimes we get in the interview and we're already so nervous. So Andrew introduced himself, Andrew Fairmont, and I'm talking and having this wonderful interview with you, and I'm there thinking, what him saying name is again, what him saying. So remember, even to walk with a paper and pen or a little folder. Nothing is wrong with that. So one of the things you can do, especially for the panel interviews, when you're having the conversations, ensure you look at the person who asked the question, scan the room. So if it is that Daniel asked the question, look at Daniel, acknowledge, maintain eye contact, and glance from time to time, move your head to look at the other person's, acknowledging them, right? Using the name is very important to also build that connection. Be mindful of your posture. Are you sitting upright? Are you hunched over? Because that can also demonstrate something about you unwittingly. So your nonverbal communication becomes important. For the females, for the ladies, sometimes we love to sit. I'm guilty of it, right? And I cross my legs by my knees. Little things like crossing your legs at your ankle. You may say, well, I think it is for the face-to-face interview.
Yes,
If it
yes,
is you are, it is those things. How do you sit down? If you want to walk with a big bag, where you're going to put the big bag? So ensure that you are comfortable. If it is at virtual interviews, because we are in the space where there are virtual interviews, the same type of thing that show up even your clothing can tell something about your mannerisms, right? So even though you're at home, don't put on a hard glue. Try to still present a very
yes,
professional
yes,
professional face, and you are still going to be mindful of how you are sitting, how you are speaking, how you are delivering, what is your volume, your tone of voice. Those things say something. Again, it goes back to not what you necessarily say, but how you say it. So if I ask a question, are you rolling your eyes? Do I hear a little yeah, the little attitude coming out? Because those things sometimes we're not even aware that we are communicating that. When I'm speaking to you, do I lean a little forward so it shows that I'm interested in what you are saying, as opposed to leaning back like this now, and it shows I'm afraid, I don't want to hear what it is that you're saying, or I'm uncertain. So when you are leaning in and the interviewer is leaning in, whenever you're speaking with anybody, that little movement actually indicates I'm listening to you, I'm interested in what it is that you are saying. And of course, you can also just clarify what persons are saying um, by the light through of. You can also just summarize what the person is saying to get clarity. Also very important.
thank you so much, Yolande. Really, really appreciate that response. I particularly like the suggestion of um, journeying with your eyes in a panel interview, um, to and from the panelists. That is actually something that I really don't like. And you remember, I think one of the things that job seekers need to understand is that separate and apart from showing that you can do the job, your job is to really make the recruiter like you and to ensure that you can do the job. Because guess what? It may sound very vain if you go in an interview with all these accolades, and you can do the job. If the recruiter don't like you, it's a hard it's a hard battle to fight. You understand? So it's important to ensure that the recruiter likes you, and it sounds biased, and it is in fact bias, right? It is in fact bias, but Your job is to make sure that the interviewer likes you. And so the first thing, you don't want to rule, you want to make sure that you're engaging everybody. It's important that in an interview, panel interview for that matter, you are engaging all the panelists. I just wanted to get that off my chest. So let's move on. We introduce ourselves, we introduce the company, and we share a little bit about the role and the candidate, has probably asked a few questions, and you will like the candidate and everything seemed to be going okay. How would you suggest that the candidate end the interview? End the interview if that makes sense. So, Daniel, I'll go to you. If you answer, if you understand what I'm trying to get to, what I want to really get to is ensuring that the candidate ends the interview on a not a high note, but positive note. Exactly, positive note.
So it's kind of blanket, but my response to that is leave a lasting impression. You would have spent maybe 30, 45 minutes, depending on if it's a panel, maybe up to even an hour and a half, engaging with the people you're engaging with. They would have at least leaked some information about themselves, if they like to joke, if they're very serious, that sort of thing. You would have been able to pay attention to the little cues that you would have been picking up, right? And I think that bringing the interview to the closure is really more about tying those pieces of information together and wrapping them up into what the interview is actually about. Yes. So if I'm in a room and the position is, let's say the position is HR, and there are different stakeholders in here. Sales is in here, operations is in here, yada yada, finance is in here. Then I'm leaving that room with an impression on those people, not just the people who are in HR, because the people who are in HR have now asked me all they want to ask me to deduce whether or not I know HR. But to my stakeholders, my last thing to you is going to be how I am going to help you, how I'm going to build this stakeholder relationship, how I'm going to help you to get those top tier sales agents, how I'm going to use my network to bring down the budget of HR for finance and still get engagement, that sort of thing. So I think that it's important for you to assess who you're in the room with, what role they play in this role that you are now applying for, what is the relationship that you're going to have with them, and then leaving them with a lasting impression, because when you leave the room, they must say, no, but she done it, she had it, this is the best candidate. And usually they're thinking selfishly. They're not necessarily thinking about the whole organization. They're thinking what you've presented to them in their seat at that time. So especially if it's a panel, you bring in all of it home to say to them, you are all stakeholders to this role that I'm applying for. This is how I'm going to start with a bang. And you're not making promises. You're just tying it into the job description based on the bits of information you would have picked up along the way. Use their personalities, a little, joke if they seem jovial, serious plans if they seem like they are planners and, critical thinkers, that sort of thing. But make sure that you leave that room with a lasting impression.
Absolutely. Yolande, some don'ts for interviewees.
Okay, when you are asked at the end of the interview if you have a question, always have a question. Don't ever not have one. That is important. Do not forget who you are as a person. Be confident, be authentic. Authenticity is very important. Do not be unprepared. Don't just show up. So I remember earlier Danielle mentioning, okay, oh, it's just a customer service job. It's just a teller job. So I'm just going to show up. Do not do that. Always be prepared. Be prepared to present your best self. You never know what
Yes.
other opportunities can come up. I could be coming in to be a customer service officer. And because of how I presented myself, there was a managerial role I was unaware of, and the person was able to see something in me that I did not see in myself. But if I did not show up, then the opportunity would not come. So it's important to and prepare some more. So do not catch yourself being unprepared. Do not be late, right? Do not be too early. Don't mean you must come half an hour, 1 hour before, right? But do not be late. Those are a few of
Exactly.
my
Do not be late. And if there are any challenges, because things happen, make
yes.
sure. I've had candidates who they don't show up for the interview and they're meeting us. Some stuff happen. Not too bad that they couldn't reach out, but they just haven't reached out at all. And you're wondering, maybe you're not interested. Are you interested? Because things do happen. And interviews can be rescheduled, so make sure that you reach out if you can.
Yes, and that gives me to the last one. Do not be unprofessional, right?
Hmm.
Because do not be too casual. So yes, we are in the age where we might be communicating with WhatsApp text, but be careful when you are communicating with potential employers. Still keep it professional. Use your correct messaging when it is you're sending an email or sending a WhatsApp, because that the interview actually starts from there. A lot of persons are screening you from the phone. So don't just answer and say wagwan. Yeah, okay. Because that is also communicating. So keep professional. If you know you're looking for a job, do not have unprofessional voicemails, right? So that is a part of the interview process. Imagine I'm calling you for your telephone interview and I didn't get through. But what I heard when the phone went to voicemail is making me think, do I want to even call back? So that is something that we take lightly, but the interview doesn't just begin when we get in front of each other. The interview starts before then and getting to know you right off the bat. So from day
Yes.
one, you are going to be prepared.
Listen, it is I don't know this generation that we're living in, but I tell you, it is one to really give some thought, because we have issues really. If our numbers are blocked, the recruits are calling from the office, 50 to 60% of the candidates don't respond. They don't answer blocked calls. And even if they answer, you know what they do? They just answer the phone, but they don't say anything. And I had to ask a couple of them, is this a thing now where you are not familiar with the number? And so you just answer the phone, but you don't say anything. Tell me, I want to learn. Tell me about that. Why? Right? So it goes back to your point. Yes, we need to be professional. We need to be professional, especially if you've applied for a job. If you never apply for nothing, then we can understand. But you apply for this job and then you understand you're not showing up. So listen, this is a great conversation. I told the producer, that boy, we could go on and on. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been watching and listening to the GSS Fireside Chat, and we've been discussing interviewing success. And the panelists, Yolande and Daniel, shared some great tips as it relates to how you can show up to interviews to ensure that you get that job. Really, at the end of the day, it is to get that job. We talked about some do's a while ago. Daniel, what's your last take on this topic?
Personally, I just want to add one thing onto what Yolande said.
Yes.
My last take is get a decent photo of yourself for your WhatsApp, please and thank you. because the pictures of you with the things in your hand that not supposed to be in your hand, or the pictures in the swimsuit, it's not, it's you have to be prepared for those calls that you have been seeking out. Yes. So the not just the voicemails, but the WhatsApp pictures, and manage those WhatsApp relationships. I have contacted candidates who did not answer the phone and then came over on WhatsApp to send a message. Sometimes the message not even saying anything. You know what I mean? So I think that in terms of how we operate in this age of social media, and this age where we blast all our emotions, all our feelings, and all our business out to the world, I think it's really important to manage all your content and manage the way that you are presenting yourself. We all understand that this is your personal page and you can do your personal things, but just remember that the interviewers, the recruiters who are looking out for you, are also looking for people of a certain caliber, people who can represent an organization in a particular way, people who can adhere to certain standards, and people who are not just going to say, well, at 5 o'clock I stop representing the organization, so I can do anything I want to do. But there are policies internally that govern how your external persona impacts the company, bringing an organization into disrepute.
Absolutely.
So I think that it's really important for us to discuss and govern how we manage ourselves in these alternate social spaces.
Absolutely. I'm loving this. Yolande, your final thoughts on the topic and your suggestion to job seekers.
My suggestion is to be prepared. And you're preparing from you're doing that resume. For me, I find doing the resume very, for the want of a better word, cathartic, because it helps me to remember some of the things I have done. Sometimes you're doing things and you take it for granted that it isn't a big deal, but just putting together the resume reminds you of the values and your worth, and helps to start that building that confidence. Read the job description carefully. Be prepared. Depending on the role, prepare a little PowerPoint and walk with it. And at the appropriate time, based on the question, back it out and show them that, listen, I did my homework. Here are my ideas based on what I am seeing. And that will impress persons. And most importantly, be your authentic self. Never pretend to be something else that you are not. And for persons, I heard Daniel mentioning the WhatsApp and the pictures. Don't feel you have to go spend no big money to do no professional photograph. You have AI. So you can upload your pictures and get nice pictures, right? I can tell you all about it. So go ahead and do those little things, but prepare to submit a resume, so that when they look at the window, they say, come, I want to interview you. Prepare for the interview by doing your research on questions that could be asked, research on using the STAR method for answering questions, and research even on what is the last question you're going to ask, right? And once you prepare, you will be confident, dress so that you feel good. So if it's for the females, you want to put on a little lipstick or something so that you feel nice and boost your confidence, do that, and smile. Just smile, and everything else will fall into place, because that also invites that warmth into the communication.
Yes, absolutely. Listen, I'm really loving this conversation, and this 1 hour, is worth millions. If we were to start coaching people, so all those who are viewing, you're getting so many. Great advice, absolutely free. So you need to be paying attention. There's a question that they'd like to ask. Okay, how do I explain an employment gap during the interview? And I'd like both panelists to give their take on this one. I'd start with Yolande, then Daniel.
Sure. So the first thing goes back to being honest about why the gap is. Do not make it up. Sometimes things happen in life and you have to take a break. So for example, there are persons who recently I would have been helping them with interviews for a law firm, for argument's sake, and there may have been a gap because for financial reasons they didn't finish, or at some point they were uncertain. But what is important is after you identify the reason for the gap, what is it that you learned in that space, and how is it that you are going to bring your best self to this job? So it's important to explain that I needed to step back because I identified that, I needed to reflect on what it is I want in my career and ensure that I am in the best space to move forward. So it's how you explain the gap that makes a difference. What did you learn from it, and how you will continue to contribute to the firm. And if you're able to do that, then no one will really care about the gap because you have now demonstrated your why and what you have learned and how you're going to move forward. But sometimes we are afraid because we are thinking that the person is going to judge us. And so you make up something that is untrue, and then they really do judge you. So it's best to just put your best foot forward and be honest.
Absolutely. Daniel.
I completely agree in terms of the honesty, because the truth is too that in the honesty, you are also telling the interviewer a little bit about yourself. I've had employment gaps. I've had employment gaps because of my decision to raise my children a little bit differently, or because of going through very rough pregnancies. But I found that to be something that gives another discussion point in, say, a family run organization, an organization where everybody has children. You know what I mean? So it adds another layer to who you are and who you're presenting as, and whether or not you are the right person for the job. But I'd also say that while you also talk about what you've learned about, being in that gap, I think it's also important to talk about what you did in the gap. So it's important for me to see that you did something. You did a little course, you took on a new skill, you threw yourself into being a stay-at-home mom or a stay-at-home dad or whatever it is. It's important for me to know, when you took that time, what did you do? What enriching experiences did you have? Because remember, the interview is not just about the skills that you're going to present, it's about you as a whole person. And those whole person skills are going to contribute to the organization overall. So even if that gap was for mental health, don't be afraid to tell it to me, because you might be telling me that you become the advocate for mental health inside our organization, because so many of us are afraid to talk about needing that moment for mental health. Maybe you become the person who tells us how to help other people who are facing burnout, who are going through crisis, that sort of thing. Telling us the truth actually adds layers to who you present as in the process.
Absolutely. And this is an important question. We're going to close. An employment gap can also prevent you from getting an interview. So I love to see on your resume that you put a little bit of explanation. If you've been out from 2015 to 2017 because you've been studying, that can go on your resume, because when I'm looking, I look out for employment gaps, because you understand me, and the explanation or the lack thereof I will either screen you in or screen you out. So it's important that you can put a tad amount of information if you're comfortable, depending on the reason, in your resume. So at least there's an explanation there, and the recruiter doesn't screen you out on the sole basis of a gap on your resume. Okay. Okay, and I'm seeing if it definitely, exactly, if it can be addressed on the resume and quickly. Here's another. Is this another question? Is it possible to obtain employment in Jamaica with American corporate experience? Absolutely. You probably, Naomi, you may be a little bit expensive, but absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, I have a lot of expats or Jamaicans who they've migrated and they want to return to Jamaica. they do reach out for that support and guidance. Am I correct, panelists? Is it correct? Tell me my
Yes,
answer.
yes. And one of the key takeaways here is transferable skills. Like we've
Mhm.
mentioned it, you can learn from anything. I used to work in the call center. I worked in the call center for 3 years. And honestly, I think my career is better off for it because of what I was able to learn, hone my communication skills, get involved in the employee resource groups. So you're not just going to work and going home. So you're learning those transferable skills. So even for Naomi, you have transferable skills. And once you have that, you are able to demonstrate how you can add value to an organization.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. This has been the GSS Fireside Chat. We've been talking about interviewing for success. And don't forget that the GSS is booming with opportunities right across various subsectors or subsect. We have IT outsourcing, knowledge process outsourcing, and the general BPO process outsourcing. Don't forget to follow GSS on all their social media platforms, IG, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. I don't know if I'm forgetting anything else. Okay, there you go. It's there. The producer is on fire tonight. All right, it has been a pleasure. I want to thank you so much, Daniel Stewart and Yolande Hilton, for joining us tonight. I'm pretty sure the viewers have learned quite a lot. Thank you so much, and until next time, I'm Andrew Fairman for the GSS Fireside Chat. Thank you. Have a good night.